Between 1916 and 1927, a disease swept across the world. It didn't kill most of its victims. It did something worse. It turned them into statues. Some of them were found mid-sentence, mid-meal, food still in their mouths, half chewed, because the muscles simply stopped. If you spoke to them, some of them could answer. They were aware. They could hear everything around them. They understood every word. They simply could not move, could not speak, could not reach the world from wherever the disease had put them.
Vienna, April 1917. A neurologist named Konstantin von Economo stood before the Vienna Society for Psychiatry and described something he had never seen before. His patients had arrived at the clinic with what appeared to be a standard illness: sore throat, fever, headache. Then something happened to their brains. Some fell into a sleep so deep that nothing could fully wake them. They could be roused briefly, answer a question lucidly, and then sink back down immediately, as if something was pulling them under. Others experienced the opposite. They could not sleep at all, awake for days, for weeks, their eyes forced open, their bodies rigid, their minds unable to rest. Von Economo named it encephalitis lethargica, inflammation of the brain, leading to lethargy. But that name, clinical, precise, contained, told almost nothing of what it actually was. By the time the epidemic ended, 1 million people had been infected, 500,000 had died. But the ones who survived are the part of this story that no one has ever been able to fully explain.
The disease had 3 forms. The first, the sleeping form. Patients who fell into a deep, unnatural sleep from which they could not fully emerge. Some slept for weeks, some for months. If you woke them, they were lucid. They knew exactly where they were. They knew exactly what was happening to them. Then they went back under. The second form, the waking form, patients who could not sleep at all, rigid, awake, their eyes forced into bizarre positions, rolling upward, locked sideways, a symptom doctors called oculogyric crisis, the eyes going somewhere the mind could not follow. These patients were not unconscious, they were completely conscious, trapped in a body performing movements they had not chosen and could not stop. The third form, the statue form, patients who simply stopped. No sleep, no bizarre movements, just stillness, a mask-like face, no expression, no response, a body present in every physical sense, but from which the person inside could no longer be reached. Doctors who worked with these patients described something that disturbed them more than any symptom they could measure: the eyes. When you spoke to the statue patients, the ones who could not respond in any other way, the eyes moved. They tracked. They followed. They registered understanding. Someone was still in there, looking out, unable to reach the glass.
Some of these patients were placed in institutions and then forgotten. Not deliberately, perhaps, but effectively. The epidemic ended in 1927. The world moved on. Other crises arrived. The patients in the asylums remained. Some of them stayed in that condition for 30 years, 40 years. In the 1960s, a neurologist named Oliver Sacks was working in a long-term care facility in New York. He found a ward of patients who had been there since the 1920s. They were still alive, still frozen, still aware, their eyes still tracking, still registering, still desperately present behind faces that could not move. Sacks tried a new medication, a drug called levodopa, that had just been developed for Parkinson's disease, and some of the patients woke up. Not all of them, not permanently for most, but for a period, patients who had been frozen for decades suddenly spoke, suddenly moved, suddenly asked what year it was. One patient had been still since 1926. She asked about her family. They were gone. She had been present for 40 years in a body that could tell no one.
During the epidemic, more than 9,000 scientific papers were written about encephalitis lethargica. 9,000. And still, nobody could identify the cause. The obvious suspect was influenza. The great Spanish flu pandemic was happening at the same time, 1918, 1919. But the timelines didn't match perfectly. The sleeping sickness had begun before the influenza pandemic peaked, and it continued after the influenza was gone. The connection was there, and it wasn't there. Modern scientists have analyzed brain tissue preserved from patients who died during the epidemic. They have found evidence of an immune response, the body attacking its own brain, triggered by an infectious agent that may have been streptococcus, or influenza, or something else entirely. They are not certain. In the early 1930s, encephalitis lethargica disappeared. Not because a cure was found, not because the cause was identified, not because anything changed. It simply stopped coming, the way it had simply started, without announcement, without explanation, without asking permission. The last known survivor of the 1916 epidemic died in 2002. His name was Philip Leather. He was 82 years old. He had been alive for the entire 20th century, most of it frozen, in a body that could not tell anyone what he was experiencing. Sporadic cases still appear today. No one knows why. No one knows what caused the epidemic. No one knows why it ended. No one knows if it will return. 9,000 papers, 100 years of research, and the only honest answer medicine has is the same one it had in 1927. We don't know what it was. We don't know where it went. And we don't know if it's finished.
The next story begins in the dark. Subscribe to uncover it.